Hello, my name is Leonardo Martinez, and this is my job interview presentation. So, the engineer that I interviewed is Paul Hammerstrom. He works at Paul Hammerstrom Design, and they do mechanical engineering and design. His position in it is he is the owner of the company, as the name of the company suggests. He leads his engineers and he manages clientele and different projects. Um, his education, he has a BS for mechanical engineering from the Worcester Polytechnic Institute in New Hampshire. Moving on into his education, um, he wasn't the most serious high school student. He had honors in AP classes, but he did bare minimum. And he did wrestling while he was in high school, and that is what got him into the University of New Hampshire. Eventually, the University of New Hampshire closed down the wrestling program, and he couldn't study there anymore, unfortunately. That is when he transferred to the Worcester Polytechnic Institute, where he eventually got his Bachelor's of Science. Career wise, he didn't really do much internships or working during his school time, but for his first job, he was able to land a job as a jet fuel test cell data analysis. After a few years of working there, he moved on to the AMP research, where he improved disc brake system and manufacturing. That is where he met one of his mentors and childhood idols, engineering idols, and he got to work with him. His mentor helped him develop his skills in engineering and helped him figure out the mindset to be an engineer, as well as develop the concept of simplicity that he did mention. Um, Eventually, he moved over to California to the West Coast, and he worked with Fox Racing Shocks as a consultant and research and development projects. I did not ask him if he worked in the one here locally in Wattsville. I hope he did, but I didn't ask him, unfortunately. And as time passed, he had to deal with some personal issues, moved back to his hometown in New Hampshire, and Fox really wanted to keep him working, so they allowed him to work remotely. So that's how he's still working with them. Eventually, old co-workers from AMP Research, from Fox, and other small jobs he did on the side called him and told him, "Hey, Paul, can you design this? Can you design that for me?" And they got to the point where he was running his own little business, and he decided to make it official in 2010 when he created Paul Hammerstrom Design. The whole point of the interview was also to get to know a schedule of a typical day for an engineer. Unfortunately, I should say fortunately, this engineer has his own company because he's able to make it big. And his schedule as an owner of a company, as an engineer, is really cuckoo, I would say, because he says that Mondays are reserved for business related things, Wednesdays are for data analysis, and clients call him at random times with no set schedule for calls. They just call him, "Hey, I need this. Hey, the machine's not working. I need to repair this or that." But his schedule is always bouncing off the walls, and there are times where he's in meetings all day or all day in the workshop. So he has no set schedule. Um, the knowledge he was able to provide from his experience in the field and from working so long in it is that he told me leadership, that leaders push their teams to grow, yet they know their limits, so you don't push your team members out too far and they burn out. He also said that one has to be really flexible and malleable because sometimes your initial vision of the project is not working, so sometimes you have to switch directions and have to do something that you thought you wouldn't have to do, or just restart or modify this or that. You just have to go to places you didn't think you'd have to go with your projects. And I always used to think that calculus, higher level math, was kind of tedious, not exactly boring, because I do find it interesting. I just thought it was tedious since I hear a lot of engineers saying that they don't really use it in their career. However, he was able to shift my perspective of this because he did tell me that visualizing alternatives is what math helps us do. Just like in those of you who've taken calculus know what integrals are and how there's multiple techniques. There's the U sub, there's the trig sub, there's the half power formulas, there's the double angle formulas, there's all that stuff. And he said that math gets us into the engineering mindset where we look for alternatives so that way we don't get tunnel vision and just focus on one thing. And it allows us to branch out into other different areas for answers, which is something really interesting, a perspective that I have not heard of about mathematics yet. That was really interesting to hear about. And the attitudes and outlooks he had were overall positive, and he did mention that in order to enjoy the career in education, one has to have the right outlooks and attitudes. You can't just go in saying, I'm just doing this because I want to do it. You have to go in saying, I want this. And that is something that really resonates within me. It was interesting interviewing him because he is his own company. He owns his own company and he manages it. So apart from the engineering, there's a lot of business going on with him. Thankfully, he did have a lot of experience in engineering. So that was really cool to talk to someone who owns their own company and has had some experience with it.